This is Theory and Applications of Organizational Communication. Today we're going to discuss leadership. Leadership is a very popular topic in many fields, from business to medicine to engineering. It's ubiquitous. Many people are talking about it and discussing it. But what is leadership? I'm not going to propose a single definition here, but instead we're going to actually look at different approaches to leadership to reveal different ideas on leadership, different features of leadership, and how they allow for different practices and different ways of understanding what leadership is. So let's start with leader-centric theories. With this approach, researchers try to identify and categorize specific behaviors in leaders that will control leadership outcomes. So basically, if you do these things as a leader, you will improve your chances of certain outcomes, such as better coordination, cooperation, motivation, etc. With this orientation, the leader-centric orientation, the leader is the one from whom the vision, mission, and transformational change of an organization arises. So leader-centric theories tend to create our cultural ideas that leaders are heroes, and it can even lead to their romanticization in some cases. For instance, if I were to teach this lecture from a leader-centric standpoint, I would present to you a list of different communication techniques that you could use as a leader to get certain outcomes. Another approach to understanding leadership are follower-centric theories. This is a counterpoint to the leader-centric theories. With this approach, followers hold leadership prototypes, or a general standard of what a leader is supposed to be. And so leaders who match followers' ideas of what a leader is supposed to be or look like or act tend to get rated higher and get more leadership opportunities. The leadership prototype that people hold, their idea of what a leader is, it comes from socially constructed ideas, the many millions of communications that we receive every day. This can be movies that we watch when we're young, or what our parents or teachers tell us, examples we see of leaders around us. A leadership prototype isn't actually necessarily a good leader. It's just what we've been trained to think is a leader based on communications from society. For instance, I regularly do an exercise with my classes, and I ask them, can you share with me 2 adjectives of what makes a good leader? The class will write them down and we gather them. Then I will ask, can you now share with us the most positive personal experience you've ever had with a leader? Once they've done that, I then ask them to write down the 2 adjectives that describe how the leader acted in that very positive experience. So there are huge differences between the 2 lists. Generally, they're socially constructed ideas of what makes a good leader without any examination. This list, which is an example from previous years, tends to be quite different from their personal experience with good leadership, which is this list, which is what they think is good leadership after they've thought and reflected on their actual positive experiences with leaders. Another lens through which to view leadership is a critical lens, which is to see leadership as a form of power and control. So leadership can be helpful and collaborative and safe and team building, right? This is what we want leadership to be. But leaders can also be coercive, controlling, and abusive. For instance, given that we create social prototypes of what and who a leader is supposed to be, this can cut out groups of people from leadership positions. For instance, women get less leadership opportunities, and so do many minority groups, because they don't fit people's ideas of what makes a good leader, even though in reality, people may prize many of the characteristics individuals within these groups exhibit in leadership situations, such as thoughtfulness, understanding, good communication, organization. Or a leader may use their position of power to abuse those under their control. There may not be any accountability. Some argue that the United States, as a leader in the global business context, dominates ideas of what a leader is supposed to be, sort of like exporting their idea of a leader, as opposed to different countries developing or cultivating their own leadership styles and identities based on their cultural values. While there's much more to discuss regarding leadership, the point in sharing these different perspectives to viewing leadership is to challenge the way we view leadership. In very simplistic terms, from a communication standpoint, we can look at leadership as a leader, you communicate these things, you get these results. Or we can look at leaders as constructed based on people's ideas of a leader, based on social norms that have been communicated to them their whole lives. Or leaders using communicative means to wield power or even abuse power. Or we can look at leadership from all these different approaches and more. I do want to conclude with one point, and that is that everyone is different and everyone has unique strengths. So everyone's leadership styles will be and should be at least slightly different. And even if people don't think that they're a good leader based on what society tells them is a good leader, that might not actually be true. And I'll add with my own personal thought on leadership, truly good leadership is service. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in our next lecture, and the topic we're going to cover is culture. Also, go ahead and watch our accompanying practical application lecture on leadership and climate change.